officially just 8 weeks out from Selection Sunday, which means it's time to tip off my weekly women's college basketball bracket predictions every Tuesday leading up to the big reveal of the 2025 March Madness bracket. Each week, I'll break down my top 16 teams, those with hosting rights, spotlight notable shifts, highlight signature wins, and of course, update you on bubble teams. But for the first one, let's just go ahead and focus on my top four seeds. Starting with the one seeds, UCLA, South Carolina, Notre Dame, and Southern California. UCLA, the undefeated Bruins have been impressive, with signature wins over three ranked teams, including Louisville and Michigan. In November's victory over South Carolina truly cemented their status as a national top contender. South Carolina, despite a loss to UCLA earlier this season, the Gamecocks have bounced back in dominant fashion, cruising through the SEC with a strong, consistent performance. The defending national champs look like they're ready to run it back. And I'd be really interested to see this squad go head-to-head again with UCLA this time around, or hey, even Notre Dame. Speaking of Notre Dame, with marquee wins over UConn and USC, the Irish are making their case as the front-runner for the ACC champions, a lock for a one seed, and possibly national champions. Southern California, a November loss to Notre Dame is their only blemish, but since then, USC has collected two top 10 wins over UConn and Maryland and four ranked wins overall. We're talking about a squad who only returns two of their starters from last year's Elite Eight run, but since then, the Trojans have developed its chemistry into something scary. For the two line, LSU, UConn, Texas, and TCU. LSU, though the Tigers' non-conference schedule was light, they've risen to the occasion with big wins over NC State and SEC rival Tennessee. A showdown with South Carolina on January 23rd could be their chance for a top 5 win. UConn, the Huskies had a couple of setbacks losing to Notre Dame and USC, but they've bounced back with wins over ranked teams like North Carolina, Ole Miss, and Louisville. Key matchups with Tennessee and South Carolina still remain down the road. Texas, like UConn, the Longhorns have suffered losses to two 1-seed contenders, Notre Dame in overtime and South Carolina. However, they've amassed ranked wins against West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Maryland. And the Horned Frogs' only loss this season came to South Carolina, but they made a statement by beating NC State and especially knocking off Notre Dame. TCU is shaping up as a Big 12 title contender and a national powerhouse. For the three seeds, Maryland, K-State, Ohio State, and Kentucky. The Terps were on a 14-game winning streak before falling to USC and Texas, and despite those two losses, they've shown impressive resilience with 10 new players, and the selection committee will certainly take notice of that. K-State, after an early setback to Duke, the Wildcats have been nearly unstoppable. Their upcoming matchup with TCU could be a preview of the Big 12 championship. Ohio State. The Buckeyes boasted a 17-game win streak until a surprise loss to Penn State. Now they'll have to prove themselves in a deep and competitive Big Ten conference as they aim to bounce back. And for Kentucky, under new head coach Kenny Brooks, the Wildcats have been competitive with just one loss to North Carolina. Key victories over Louisville and Illinois, coupled with solid SEC performances, have them firmly in the mix to host. And for the four line, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Duke, and Tennessee. The Tar Heels have taken some bumps in the road this season with 3 losses to top 25 teams, but their wins over Duke and Kentucky plus victories over Indiana and Miami have kept them in the conversation. Oklahoma, the Sooners have had their struggles with 4 losses on the season, but they've also registered impressive wins over Tennessee in a close battle, plus Michigan. Their schedule in the SEC offers more opportunities to prove themselves. Duke, the Blue Devils haven't shied away from a tough schedule and have been competitive in most of their losses. However, big wins over K-State, Oklahoma, and Cal showed that they're dangerous in the ACC. And last but not least, Tennessee, with 3 close losses, the Vols have been on the cusp of greatness. They're just a few points away from being in the top 10 in what has been a transitional year for new head coach Kim Caldwell. Those are my top 16 teams who I think will possibly have the privilege of hosting the first and second rounds for now. For my entire March Madness bracket, you can head to ncaa.com. More brackets to come. Make sure you tune in every Tuesday.